Domino's new Parmesan stuffed crust pizza tastes like never before.
Welcome into STL Sports Central. This is the Card Central Postgame Show brought to you by DraftKings. He is Grant Salzman. I am Chris Pelican. Grant, I guess there is a scientific term for what we just witnessed, and you put it up in the header of this one. Boat raced. Cards boat raced in this thing. Final 11-0. They dropped 2 of 3 in Chicago to the Cubs. This thing never competitive. The comments are already running fast and furious, and it's a good reminder, folks. Please jump in. We need to hear it all, get it all out. It's not good to go to bed angry. I guess that's what married couples say. So go ahead and jump in and get into the chat here on YouTube. While you're in there, please hit the like and subscribe button. Do something nice for us this evening, even though the Cardinals did nothing for us nice tonight. And Grant, I mean, there's not a lot to say about this one. I'll let you say whatever it is you have. I feel like this discussion needs to be a little bit more about a few specific players, where this team goes moving forward. The game itself was a complete and total dumpster fire. But I will let you say your piece on this thing. All of our special friends in the chat are doing the exact same. So Grant, speak now or forever hold your piece on this piece of you know what.
Well, when I was making the headline for it, the title, obviously there were some expletives you could use to describe what this was. I wrote this word, oh no. If I'm still here. Okay, sorry. I had some technical difficulty. I wrote this word, pathetic, at first. I took that out. I wrote embarrassing. I wrote dumpster fire, and I went on boat race because that's what it was. I mean, when you after those first 2 innings was over, I mean, it was maybe one of the more uncompetitive baseball games we've seen. But then oh, wait, we had an uncompetitive game Friday night. Oh, and we had an uncompetitive game the week before with Eric Fetty. Eric Fetty was good he was good enough for what you thought. He had times where he looked like you had a pretty good 3-man rotation with Liberatore, Gray, and Fetty. I think about that complete game against the Nationals. He went 5 2/3, gave up 0 runs to the Dodgers. Like he's had some starts, but he's lost it. I mean, he has lost it. He had, before these 3 starts, he had a 3.4 ERA. Like, that is very serviceable. And that is also with some blowups. Anything thrown in the strike zone was hit today. And he went 1 1/3. I think he gets one more start. I don't think they DFA or do anything drastic before the All-Star break. But I want to look at this comment, Nick Jensen. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good, an under 3 ERA. So I would say that's good. And I've seen tweets that the Cardinals, maybe they missed an opportunity to get rid of them. The
offseason, sure.
The offseason, coming off a career year. I just think that I was happy with what Fetty was doing. You expect him to be around a 3.3, 3.4, and that's where he was until these last 3 starts. And it's something mental, because I do think he has the stuff to be a guy that you can at least trust every 5 days. We've seen it throughout his career that he's a fine 3 or 4 starter. I don't know what's happening.
You know, it's funny, Grant. It's like you look at Eric Fetty, and obviously this is what we're gonna talk about for a majority of this time. Number one, I would not be surprised if that was his last start in a Cardinal uniform. The reason I say that is I know that Ollie wanted to win this game. He wanted to win this series, but for him to pull him at 53 pitches at an inning and a third, you know, you even saw Fetty kind of mouth the comment like, wow, you know, like, I'm really getting pulled now. And, you know, I think every Cardinal fan wanted to say, yeah, because you've walked 4 guys, you know, you've gotten 4 outs. And here's the funny thing. You mentioned his stuff, and, the stuff itself, yeah, he added the sweeper when he was in Japan or Korea, came back, sort of reinvented himself with the White Sox, but if you watch tonight, everything he threw that was a strike was on the middle of the plate.
Yeah.
All of his balls were non-competitive pitches for the most part, and he threw more balls than he threw strikes. There's never a point in time where a major league pitcher should have that on their stat line. So you say it's mental. I mean, it very well might be. I mean, obviously his velocity is not really down. He's still throwing that sinker at 94, 95. But I do think that this felt like kind of a Waterloo moment, especially when you consider the day before Miles Michaelis was getting completely and totally blasted. And I understand the logic. Hey, we don't want to kill the bullpen because we're going to lose this game. Let's let Miles wear this one, but, and I know they're off tomorrow. So maybe Ollie's got in his mind that, hey, I can use some of the bullpen. We can go longer in this thing. But I do feel like when you go and you grab a guy at 53 pitches, in the second inning, you're basically telling him, we don't have confidence in you. If you look at the way that this stuff is all lining up, Michael McGreevy is eligible to return prior to Fetty's next turn in the rotation, which is Saturday. Again, I mean, the pieces are kind of lining up a little bit for a good old DFA. And again, it's kind of, this is the thing that we've talked about more than anything this whole season. What is it that this team is wanting to do, at any given point? Are they giving runway to young players to see what they've got? Are they trying to contend? And at this point in time, right now, I believe they're now 6.5 games out of first place, but the wild card still remains very much
half game out of a wild card spot, and both teams in front of you are playing. So you could still be tied if they both lose.
Yeah. And so you're looking at it, and I think that this team is making the decision, the calculation at this point in time that, we are over halfway into this season. We are still right there for a playoff berth. Let's go for this thing. And if that's the case, you can't have Eric Fetty in this rotation at this point in time. His last three starts, he's gone 9 total innings in 3 starts. And I believe he's given up 17 earned runs in those 9 innings. He is not giving your team a chance to win. Miles Michaelis, you could say the same thing at this point in time. Michael McGreevy's a guy who clearly deserves a shot at this point because you're not getting consistent production out of Michaelis and Fetty. So it seems to me that if you and I are betting at this point in time, I think that I don't know if you see some element of, the Riley O'Brien go down, Fetty gets moved to the bullpen to try to work some things out. Do you completely cut bait with the guy? The rub is, and this is a true thing, no matter what anybody in the chat wants to say, it's the God's honest truth. There is no one who's ready behind Michael McGreevy at this point in time. So if you cut bait with Eric Fetty, right, DFA him, let him go and write him a check and say, see you later. They really have nothing if anybody gets hurt. And we still, there still are older arms in this rotation at this point in time. So again, I don't know what it looks like, but if I'm betting right now, I tend to think that Michael McGreevy makes the start next Saturday and not Eric Fetty.
I think this is what the Cardinals should do, to Brandon's point. Put Fetty on phantom IL.
Right.
Oh, his arm's been hurt. He needs 30 days. And you give McGreevy a long shot. So then maybe Fetty can work some things, or put Fetty on a 15-day IL. He comes back around the end of the All-Star break, and he makes a rehab starter or two in Memphis, and you can see what you got. Maybe he just needs to work through some things. Maybe he can come up better. But I see your point too. But do you see Gordon Graceffo at all as a guy that could be?
I mean, it seems like they're looking more at Graceffo as a high leverage guy. It feels like that's the area they want to push him. I mean, and Quinn Matthews has regressed this year. Like, again, it's an organizational issue at this point in time that they don't have significant enough depth at the high minors, in order to sort of push through this kind of thing. And I did the show, I guess it was on Saturday, maybe Friday. I'm old, Grant. I don't remember any days at this point in time, but the discussion that we had was more along the lines of, again, these are depth questions at this point in time. And I really do think that no matter what it is. And I think the phantom IL might come up, but I mean, it's amazing that this rotation has had no injuries this year. When you look at what other teams are going through with the injuries to their rotation, I mean, it's an absurd amount of luck. I mean, honestly, with this group, because again, the guys that you'd have to, I mean, maybe you could stretch Matt's back out, although it seems like Matt's has found a pretty good rhythm in the role he's in right now. But beyond that, I mean, they really do not have any other options. So, again, this is a tough one because, you thought Fetty was going to be your consistent quality start guy,
6 innings, 3 runs.
And for a long time before this, with these last 3, I want to say he went 11 straight starts going over 5 innings and not allowing an absurd amount of runs. And so he was doing exactly what you thought. And for whatever reason, and again, I'm not going to try to break down his mechanics or any of that stuff, but I mean, today was terrible because again, it was non-competitive misses coupled with every single thing that was in the strike zone was in the heart of the plate. It was like Michaelis. I mean, everything was getting hit insanely hard. And, hate to say it, but unless you are somebody who lives on the edge, I mean, every good Major League Baseball pitcher does not throw balls over the middle of the plate. You just cannot do it. And that's all Fetty was doing tonight.
It doesn't matter if you're throwing 106. If you're throwing it right down the middle, MLB hitters are good enough. They're going to hit it. And especially when you don't have much velocity like Fetty does, and when your changeup's not sharp, you're not setting anything up. It's pretty easy, and that's what the Cubs did. And I see some comments, too, about the offense, but you're down, what was it, 7-0 after 3 innings? It's when you do that, it's pretty tough to, all right, boys, let's go, let's rally. Like, you're kind of, I don't want to say sleepwalking through your at-bats, but you really you are sleepwalking through your at-bats a little bit. You got to find a way to go 4-2 in these next 6. You win 2 series. If you're looking at the wider scale, you win 2 series. The Cubs play the Yankees. Like, you might be able to gain a little bit of ground. I do think that the NL Central might be a little out of it. Like, I think that's gone. But with the wild card, you're still right in it. And a 4-2 to get into the All-Star break, I think your outlook's still just fine.
Yeah, you're right. This coming week is a huge week. And it feels like we've heard this story year in and year out with John Mozeliak in this front office. Where are they at? They've got to show us where they're at, and then we'll make a decision about the future and the trade deadline and that sort of thing. But it really does feel like with, the next 6 that they've got with Washington, who fired their manager and their general manager today, huge upheaval in Washington, and then a very struggling Atlanta Braves team coming into town. This is a chance for you to pile up a few wins prior to the All-Star break and make everyone feel a little better than they do right now. So I don't think there's any doubt about that, but we will have to see. He is Grant Salzman. I'm Chris Pelican. This is the Card Central Postgame Show. It is sponsored by DraftKings. The crown is yours, folks. Jump in, as you have been doing, into the chat here in the YouTube section. While you're down there, please hit the like and subscribe buttons for to join the family here at STL Sports Central. And so, Grant, again, this is the funny thing, because right now it feels disparate. Like, I mean, everyone feels terrible about where things sit right now at this team, because you lost 2 games this weekend, but you did it in non-competitive fashion. The Cubs just simply looked like the better team almost the entire weekend. The Cards needed a lot of late inning heroics to avoid getting swept. And I guess I've got to ask you, where do you sit with the team right now? I mean, if we're going to try to take off the sting of Sunday and Friday night, where are you with this team as they head into the last week leading up to the All-Star break?
Are you like, is this how I would feel if you told me this team was at?
No, I'm saying right now, regardless with everything that I'm not saying before the season, if you would have said they'd be 5 games over 500 at this time, because everybody would have taken that, right? There's no one who expected this team, other than the guys in the locker room, as they like to say, but no one expected this team to be as competitive as they've been. And that's important to understand. I think we've got to feel good about that. But having said that, we still are in this weird vortex of like, what do you do with this team? Right. I mean, because again, a game out of the wild card, but there are some options, right? Ryan Helsley's a guy who's seemingly coming into form. There'll probably be a lot of value with Ryan Helsley over the course of the next few weeks. A lot of trade calls. What does this team do? Do they go at? Clearly, this team can't hit left-handed pitching. Seen a lot of comments kind of about why Pozo was the DH. Why is Garrett Hampson in this lineup? I couldn't agree more. I know Pozo had a great game last night with the big home run. Having said that, again, if he's getting regular at bats for your team, there's a little bit of an issue. The Nolan Gorman runway, like, again, you and I have talked about this before, but why is he not in there today? He has not struggled against lefties. So why is he not playing on a day like today? So, again, maybe your thoughts on just sort of where this team sits at this point in time, and what do you need to see to feel good about them buying to some degree? What do you need to see for them to maybe move forward and sell? What do you need to see for them to stand pat? I mean, this is not just a fork in the road. It feels like there's 3 different paths this team could go.
I would say if I just think about this team overall, where I'm at right now, the what's happened recently stings. It's not just losing 2 or 3. It's the winning the first 2 games last week against the Cubs and not seizing an opportunity there to win, 3 or 4. You all your way back to, I think there were 2.5 games, and you get swept by the Pirates in total just mind-boggling fashion. Then you go out and you crush the Guardians, win 3. Then you come back and do this. Like, it's just the inconsistency is what's really disappointing. And you've been blowing out, I think, 6 of your last 10, 6 of your last 11 games have just been,
which didn't happen early in the season, right? Like, they did not get blown out that often early in the season. It seems to be picking up momentum. Continue.
Yeah,
sorry.
And you're getting killed in games. The games you lose aren't, 7-6. They really played that one well. The offense came alive, or 2-1. Like, they're getting murdered in these games. Just no chance. So I think that's what's disappointing. Now, as far as what I want to see, I don't want to see this team sell, because I think what the theme of the season is starting to be is the youth is inconsistent. And every now and then they look like what they did against Cleveland, and then they look like the team that we saw today. So I think it's a lot of inconsistency. I think if they stay, the goal is to stay with your head above water entering the All-Star break. And to me, that's within a game of a wild card spot and 5 games back of the NL Central. And if you do that, I think you have a chance to compete. And if you're really, I think for them to buy, which I think would be a very soft buy, it would be like when they got John Lester, Jose Quintana, maybe you DFA Helsley and you just get another arm that can throw some strikes as your buy. I think that to do that, you probably have to be comfortably in a playoff spot, maybe a game or 2 up in the wild card and maybe 2 or 3 back of the NL Central. You're still in a spot, though, with this many games left where it can flip like that. You sweep and the Cubs lose 3 in a row, and all of a sudden you're right back in it, because the Cubs will have a stretch where they go 3-7 in 10 games. Like, it's going to happen. So I think there's a lot of baseball left, but I'm just really disappointed with the inability to seize an opportunity. It feels very eerily similar to last year. You started out a lot better than you thought you would be, and then things kind of just collapsed and blew up. I think, they got swept by Pittsburgh out of the All-Star break last year. You get swept by Pittsburgh right before. So I would say very disappointing. In a lot of missed opportunities in the last 2 weeks is how I feel.
Yeah. And, and what I'll say is, for me personally, my disappointment comes from the fact that we are 90 games into this season, give or take exactly. We are at game number. Yeah. This was game 91. And we still really have no idea whether Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman are going to be a part of this team moving forward. And again, a lot of points, a lot of texts or, messages in the chat about this. Why was Nolan Gorman not in the lineup tonight? The guy's been hitting the ball as well as most people on this team right now. And, Garrett Hampson and Joel Pozo, who are 2, by definition of the word, journeyman. And so, I believe in my mind that 1000% this team doesn't need to trade any assets who have any conceivable piece of the future or part of the future in attempts to get rental players. We don't need to do that. But having said that, go with what worked early on, which was pushing your younger guys, letting them go out there and just be themselves and play. The Garrett Hampsons of the world don't need to be getting at bats on this team. Joel Pozo is a backup catcher at this point in time. Again, I know he had a really, really nice home run. I thought it was a good piece of managing by Ollie. I know that's not going to be a very popular, sentiment, but they needed somebody to put the bat on the ball, which Pozo does a lot of. He doesn't ever walk. He never, takes a lot of bad swings and that sort of thing. But again, your desire to win, which is 1000% what this team should be doing, needs to coincide with this goal of making sure that we understand what this team has for the future. And so again, that's probably where my disappointment is. I hate losing a game 11-0 when Garrett Hampson and Joel Pozo are in the starting lineup. That's kind of the thing that stings with me tonight. Not losing a game 11-0, not the fact that Eric Fetty couldn't throw a strike if his life depended on it. But again, the way that this team is struggling so internally with what its mission is at this point in time, that it's forgetting what's important, which is the long term. And I'm not, I know a lot of people really think that this team needs to start selling off pieces. And I think my biggest concern with that is I really do believe this team would have sold off pieces if there had been anything decent offer-wise. I think that the Helsley thing is a really interesting discussion. I would love to know what offers had been made for Ryan Helsley at last year's trade deadline, in the offseason, throughout the course of this year at this point in time, because at some point in time, it's not worth just taking a guy, so that's kind of the issue with where we're at the moment in my mind. And so, again, I think this team needs to go back to playing Nolan Gorman all the time. I guess Jordan Walker's making a swing adjustment now, which, we've heard this before. And that's why he's continuing to, his IL stint is going to last a little bit longer. But I mean, they need to know what they've got moving forward. And again, 90 games into the season, I don't think we have any idea whether or not you realistically can plan for next year with Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker as a part of the team. That's an uber frustration for me.
Yeah. And it's just been Walker. It seemed like, he's picking up some momentum. He gets hurt. Then he comes back, gets a few hits in a game, and he has an appendicitis. It's just everything that could go wrong with that guy is going wrong. I don't think you give up on Walker just yet. I think he will be part of the team next year. Nolan Gorman, I don't know. I'm liking what I'm seeing, but he should be playing every day. He should be your everyday DH, second baseman, whatever. I'm seeing a lot of comments, and this is something that Brendan and I talked about a few blow-up Fetty starts ago, about how bad the Tommy Edman trade for Eric Fetty is. I don't think it was that bad. And explain. I know I'm going to get some hate for this. One, where does Tommy Edman play right now? I don't know. Okay. Two, they weren't going to give him that money that he got after being a playoff hero. Where is he playing right now? Do you move Brendan Donovan somewhere else? Do you move Mason Wynn somewhere else? Does he play in the outfield? I don't know. Second, before this start, Tommy Edman's OPS plus, which is, how you define a hitter, the best way to define a hitter, was less than Eric Fetty's ERA plus. Eric Fetty was technically by ERA plus an above average pitcher. Tommy Edman was a below average batter coming into today. Edman got a few hits. Fetty did not do well. Now Tommy Edman, for the first time this season, is above an OPS plus compared to Fetty's ERA plus. So before this, the trade was technically won by the Cardinals, if you're looking at it in that way, which I think is a pretty good stat. Now, I do think there might have been another piece you could have got other than Fetty. I liked Fetty at the time. I thought he was good last year, but it just hasn't worked. And that's just me looking at some hindsight. I don't think Edman had a future here. I think it would have been Donovan anyway. You couldn't have both of them. So I think it's a wash. I don't think it's crazy because I don't think Tommy Edman would be on this roster right now either way. Now you can be mad. You can be mad that you got Fetty. I understand that. You can be mad that it wasn't a different pitcher, but at the time, it wasn't a terrible trade. Edman was not going to be a second baseman of the future. There was nowhere to play him because then Brendan Donovan doesn't have the year he's having right now if Edman's on this team.
Yeah, and Grant, and truth be told, I agree with you from the standpoint of work with me for a second on this one. So
1 second, Chris. I just want to say, Edman's not the NLCS MVP on this team. He never breaks out in the playoffs like that. He never becomes a household name if the Cardinals don't trade him. He never has that opportunity.
I completely agree. And on top of that, there are guys. This is my point with this Cardinal team. The reason I think this team has 7 6-hole hitters on the roster.
Yeah.
Tommy Edman is fantastic in LA because he gets to hit ninth. Okay. Right. Like, I mean, this is it happened. The Cardinals used to be the beneficiaries of this.
Yeah.
When they had Pujols, Edman, and Roland sitting in the middle, and Reggie Sanders would come in, and he's a guy who'd been decent his whole career, but he comes and hits seventh and is a 25 home run guy and the best 7-hole hitter in baseball. It's like, people, when you're relied upon to do certain things, that changes the way that you play the game. And again, the Cardinals don't have any middle of the order hitters. That's the problem. So Tommy Edman's a great complementary piece. The problem is that I think people here thought that he needed to be a higher level piece. On top of that, he was getting paid. So, like this week, we see the Blues make a trade where they send Zach Bolduc to Montreal. And people are going, well, no, he looked really good last year. And this defenseman they're getting is, the issue is this. And it's the same thing that happened with Tommy Edman. At some point, you got to decide whether you want to pay a guy or not. Okay. And that clock was about to run out on Tommy Edman and on Zach Bolduc. And the organizations decided these are not the people that we want to invest a lot of years and a lot of money in, which is a totally reasonable thing. And I'm telling you 1,000%, whether or not you think they got the best return for Tommy Edman, fair enough. But let's keep in mind one thing about Tommy Edman. He hadn't played a game the entire season when they traded him last year. So there was a little bit of a wing and a prayer by the Dodgers, just liking his metrics and whatnot, and thinking he would have fit in well with what they were doing. Because again, that's a team that could have used a Ben Zobrist, a Tommy Edman, the jack of all trades. I don't see him as the guy who, especially in a team that is entering a rebuilding period, was going to be a centerpiece, because Tommy Edman was on the wrong side of arbitration at this point in time. So again, all those factors have to be kept in mind, so, to your point, yeah, Eric Fetty has been a serviceable guy until the last 3 starts. And it looks like, as it tends to do with pitchers in their mid-30s, when the wheels fall off, they fall off pretty quickly. I mean, look at Adam Wainwright, who we all love. And I mean, when it got bad with Waino, it got bad in a hurry, because that's what happens when you get old.
Yeah.
Your arm doesn't work the way it used to. So again, I'll look at it and say that, it's a fun conversation to have about really who won that deal. But again, I really do think that Tommy Edman was not a part of this future. That's the important thing.
I mean, I'm not here arguing that the Dodgers lost the trade. I mean, you've got an NLCS MVP and a guy that's still serviceable to you. Obviously, they won the trade, and they gave up some bad prospects to the White Sox too. The White Sox might be the real loser, because they got nothing in return for either of the guys they gave up. But it's the Dodgers who won it, and it's a fun conversation. But I think that if you're disappointed in this, you should be more disappointed in who the Cardinals got, not that Tommy Edman's not on the team.
I would concur with that. All right, folks, this is Card Central Postgame Show, brought to you by DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use the code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers to play $5. You get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins, only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Cards fall 11-0 to the Cubs tonight in Chicago. They lose 2 of 3 in the Windy City. They fall to 48-43 on the season. And, we appreciate everybody jumping into the chat here on YouTube. Feel free while you're down there to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Carl chiming in saying, also as a manager, why do you schedule Michaelis and Fetty in a series like that against the Cubs? Short rest be damned. I'm putting my best up against what could be the linchpin series of the season. Carl, it's a good point,
Yeah.
And I don't really, you can say you have faith in your guys. You can say it's lined up well. Again, I still think that every night Ali and Mo and all the brain trusts are, saying prayers or doing their whatever dance. The fact that they've somehow had 5 guys who have not gotten hurt this year, that they've kept the same rotation with intermittent starts from different people just to break things up and get a little extra rest. But Again, I don't know if it's a rhythm thing that they didn't want to throw off or what, but it's a good point. I mean, and I agree that, if you look at Michaelis and Fetty both, it's been 3 starts in a row that have been bad for both of them. Before that, it was more good than bad with both of them. So, again, how long is the leash? Where do we go with this team right now? Again, I made my comment already that I think that Eric Fetty does not take the ball on Saturday when the Cardinals play the Braves here in St. Louis. I think Michael McGreevy gets that start. I do believe that many of our commenters and posters are correct in that we might see an IL stint for one of them. It probably Fetty at this point in time. But again, you're at a point here where whether we, no matter how bad we feel, this team has a chance to go and win 4 of 6, 5 of 6 against 2 teams from the NL East that are not playing good baseball at this point in time. And you could theoretically end up going into the All-Star break 8-9 games over 500. And Grant, again, we can go back to the beginning of the year, and if you had told me that if there's not one person in the world who, if you would have said this team's going to be 8 games or 9 games over 500 at the All-Star break, would not have done a cartwheel and said, whatever you're smoking, give me some.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I like that comment too, because there was some times, I think of the last Cubs series, where he got an extra day of rest instead of pitching on Sunday. He got an extra day of rest, another day, pitched on 6 days of rest. And if it would have been moved where he pitched on 5 instead, he would have ended up going against the Cubs in this series. I do think
you're talking about Sonny Gray, right?
Sonny Gray, yes.
Okay.
It stinks too that with 6 games left, he's only pitching 1 more before the All-Star break. Like, I think there was definitely ways that you could have fixed the schedule around a little bit, done a little manipulating, and got him to pitch 2 more games. Now, he pitched on 6 days rest. It was when he threw his complete game, 89 pitch, 1 hitter. So it's hard to argue with that. And he's pitching against one of the better pitchers in baseball, and Mackenzie Gore, an underrated pitcher, in my opinion, the Nationals ace on Wednesday. So that's okay. At least they scheduled him up to be against a pitcher of his quality as well. You got to find a way to go 4-2.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Maybe if we have one silver lining today, Brendan Donovan, the Cards' lone All-Star, highly deserving. Let's not make all 35, 40 minutes of this show complete and total negativity. Again, I mean, Brendan Donovan's this guy. He's the guy who, if I'm going to be negative about Brendan Donovan, it's going to be why have the Cardinals not locked him up to a longer term extension at this point in time? I worry that he's deep enough into this whole thing that he's just going to keep hitting 315, 320 and go to the market after next year. But again, Brendan Donovan, what a great first half. This team isn't anywhere close to 48 wins without what Brendan Donovan's done this year.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think he's the guy right now for the Cardinals. He can be a star player, and I hope they can get him locked up soon, maybe locked up this offseason. He doesn't seem like a guy that would run you for all your money, especially because I think he's happy in St. Louis. I think he'd be willing to accept a team-friendly deal. But also I see that people say the Cardinals wouldn't be crazy to trade off a guy that's going to turn 29 after a career year too. So there's a couple different ways they could go. I don't see that being the route. I do think that they should lock him up.
Yeah, and with him too, it's funny because you look at a guy, and I'm trying to think of a good comp for Brendan Donovan, and the guy who sort of pops out in my mind every once in a while is Luis Ariz, right?
Yeah.
He's just a guy who isn't going to slug at a real high level, bat on the ball all the time. Luis Ariz is a 3-time batting champ. I know Brendan Donovan has not achieved that. But Luis Ariz is a guy who has been moved a couple times in his career already. And you sit there and you say, I understand that front offices love slug, right? Slug is where it's at. That's where the money is. And so, I'm curious what it will take to get a deal done with Donovan. And I don't know that he would maybe return huge assets, despite the fact that I find him to be a guy who's so much more valuable than his Saber metrics would say they are, right? Because I think he's, his position flexibility is fantastic. The fact that he gets on base at the clip he does, that he always seems to put the ball in play when you need him to, and he's a guy too, who I tend to think you could get 6-7 years and, excuse me.
Oh, Chris.
There it is. There it is. I need somebody to come and give me the Heimlich. But point being, I don't know that he's going to run you 20 million plus a year. I think he's a 12 to 15 million a year. And I think that's a real reasonable number for this team. My 2 cents.
I'm going to give one more silver line. I might get some chirps for this, but
Okay.
inning of the third from Kyle Lay, who's really been struggling lately. Scoreless outing. I know it was an 11-0 uncompetitive game. I'm aware, but Leahy was important in this bullpen when things were clicking. He was kind of a do-it-all guy, whether to close out the game, set up man, 6th inning in a jam. I would like to see Kyle Leahy kind of get back to what we saw him in April and May, because I think he's really important for this Cardinals team.
And I will say, I believe I heard the statistic that prior to tonight, that he had 19 consecutive outings where he had allowed a hit.
Well, I gave up a hit again tonight.
Okay,
so.
never mind. Then 20 consecutive. But point being, I mean, again, he went a little longer tonight than he normally does and that sort of thing. Yeah. So, again, yes, it was good that he put up a 0 on the board. So that's a good thing. Well, Grant, I guess we'll start wrapping things up. Your thoughts on a big week coming up for this team? They get Monday off, burn the game film, as we like to say on this one. Washington comes in on Tuesday. Your thoughts on the last 6 before the All-Star game?
Win both series, 4-2. And if you find a sweep, you got to win both. I think 4-2 is the minimum. I think 4-2 probably has you in a playoff spot come All-Star break, which I think everyone should be happy about. You got to find a way to either fix one of Fetty or Michaelis, or you can't. The thing is, you can't cut them both. As sad as it is, you can't cut them both. They don't want to call someone up from AAA who might do better and probably would do better and struggle, though, and ruin a kid's confidence right away who they don't deem ready, because you don't want to ruin a career. So I think that one will be gone. I don't think you come back after the All-Star break and both are on this roster, both are starting pitchers. Got to find a way to go 4-2. And if you go 2-4, I think the season is in danger of going the same way last year's did, where things just start tanking come the end of July and August. And if that happens, then I don't think Ryan Helsley will be on this team in August. So definitely a couple forks in the road, in my opinion.
He is Grant Salzman. I'm Chris Pelican. This has been the Card Central Postgame Show, brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours, folks. Go to bed. Hopefully, you're a little less angry on this one.
24-hour rule.
24-hour rule. Let's let this thing go away and die, and get ready for a very, very big week of Cardinal baseball. So for Grant, I'm Chris. We will see you on Tuesday.